On the Daytona mess. It's been a while. We got the motor mounts in. I gotta do a little bit of reinforcement on these because they're not quite the greatest. I gotta make room for that extra hole, and I've got to deal with the oil filter issue, but that's not too big of a problem. They had ugly welds, but I don't care because they're in. You know, that's kind of a temporary second version of it. It'll get better as time allows. I got to get a new O-ring for that because that's leaking. I got a gasket for the transmission pan. I got to put that on before we really do too much more. It's kind of, the whole motor sort of tilted backwards. I got to work on that. I got to raise up the back end of the transmission. I got a ton of room behind the motor, but I still got to move it back 6 inches or so, maybe 7 or 8. But there it is. I got a couple of new bolts in there. I need to put some washers on and tighten them bell housing bolts down, and that'll be good. So there's the engine bay. If you can, well, let me pull this other light up here so you can see a little better. There we go. That's the beast. She's a setting in there on the new mounts, sorta. Now the next thing we got to do, I'll just use this light instead, is I've been gradually picking up the body and moving it backwards on the frame, and then moving the engine, keep repeating, and it's almost to where I got it. I want it. I think I got about 5 or 6 inches to move the wheel back, move the frame forward and the car forward and the frame backward, and that should do it. I got to get a new dipstick too for the transmission too. I accidentally set the car down on it and bent the stupid thing. It doesn't look too bad the way it is, but it's off, and it can't be that far off. I need the clearance. There's that. The back end looks better, but see, it's still not quite right. So we got to get that taken care of. I mean, it's only going to be probably 6 inches, maybe 7 or 8 if I really want to. But then I'll have to move the motor again because if it's more than 5 or 6 inches, the distributor will hit. And I'll have to move the motor forward a little bit more. The good news is I've got clearance underneath. The motor clears the axle, and I've also got enough room for the starter. It kind of looks sort of small in there, but the nice thing is I can access the starter right through the wheel well. That's handy. It's a giant pain in the ass on my truck. It's a little close there. I might need to shave some of that off and put some reinforcement somewhere else on that mount. The mount's the same on this side as it is on the other side. And I actually drilled them right this time. Pretty neat. That works. And I got plenty of room, plenty of clearance to hook up the power steering lines, so that's good. Plenty of clearance on both the pump and the gear. Ironically, like I said, well, Chevy and Dodge used the same, pump. So we gotta, the whole frame's got to go backwards in reference to the car. I gotta take that chunk of 4x4 out of there. It's one solid piece. Gotta do a little bit more welding, put some shock mounts in, get that old spring out of there, bash it out of there somehow or other. Oh, there's my magnet thing. My little magnet parts tray is still stuck to the rear end. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those old cab mounts yet. They're still fairly solid. They're a little bit rusty, but they work. I might use those to mount a step, because I'm going to need a step because this thing's kind of high. So she's looking pretty good. It'll get better. I'm almost there to where I can bolt the body down. That's a major improvement. But there you go. I think that's about all for now. Well, see you later.